Hello and welcome to EBZ Devotion. I trust that you are well and keeping safe. Our encouragement today is from the book of Ruth, and I want to read 2 verses to set us off. Ruth 1 verse 20 says, "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." And Ruth chapter 4 verse 17, "The women living there said, 'Naomi has a son,' and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David." 2 very interesting verses. One very negative, the other one very positive. What happened in between? That is the story we're going to look at briefly. But the key lesson from Naomi's life, as we focus on it, is when things don't go your way, trust in God. When things don't go your way, trust in God. So let's take a background to this story. Naomi had a husband who was called Elimelech. They lived in Judah. They had 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Now when famine struck the place that they were staying, they decided to go to a distant country, actually Moab, to stay there and live there. In the course of time, the 2 sons married 2 Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. But unfortunately, Elimelech passed on. Then after some time, while they were still there in Moab, Mahlon and Chilion also passed on. So Naomi was left with her 2 daughters-in-law. And then she had that the fortunes back home had turned, that food now was available. So she decided to go back home to Judah. Now the daughters-in-law were escorting her back, and they reached a place where she asked them to go back to their home country in Moab, because she had nothing else she could offer them. Her sons had died. There were no grandchildren she had, and she wasn't expecting herself to get married and even have children. Would they even be old enough to remarry this daughters-in-law for them to have husbands? No, it was not possible. And she gave them that indication. And so she asked them, please go back to your home country. You will find husbands again for yourselves and get married. So Orpah went back, but Ruth insisted on following her mother-in-law. And so they came back again to Judah. And this informs our first verse that we read. When the neighbors, the kinspeople of Naomi saw her, they said, "Oh, Naomi's back. Hi, welcome." They were greeting her. They were welcoming her back. That's when Naomi said these words, "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter." Things were not well with her. According to her own perspective, she looked within, she looked around, she checked her circumstances, and they were just grim. She had lost her husband, she had lost her sons. They didn't manage yet at that time to have any children, so she didn't get any grandchildren. She went away, full house. She came back empty. And so she said, "The Almighty has made my life bitter." Naomi had nothing that she was looking forward to that could bring her joy or any positivity. She could only see back to what could have been, and she was like, my best days were behind me. As for this situation I'm in, it is the Lord Himself who has brought it to me, and I am bitter. Call me that, because that is what I am experiencing. And I guess also for most of us, sometimes when things don't go our way, we can look at those circumstances and see a bleak future tomorrow. We are totally unsure of what's going to happen in the later years. And so this is exactly also where Naomi was. But let's take a short break at this time. And then after we come back, we'll see how things turned for the better for Naomi. Take a listen.
We listen to it all the time.
Inspiring and uplifting.
This is Bloom Radio.
The best of you.
Wonderful, love them.
It just makes my day a whole lot better.
It makes me feel good about myself if I'm having a bad day.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Bloom Radio KE.
There's just been so much that has touched me personally.
Other stations could feed your mind, but this station really feeds your soul.
Like us on Facebook, Bloom Radio KE.
Welcome back to EBZ Devotion. Today we are reflecting on the book of Ruth, and especially our key character is Naomi. And our key lesson we are saying is, when things don't go your way, trust God. We saw that Naomi lost her husband, lost her 2 sons, and now was left with just one daughter-in-law, Ruth, whom she had come back with in Judah. But as they began to stay there, things started unfolding in ways even Naomi did not have any clue about. But indeed, we see the Lord only orchestrating things to work out these purposes. Because Naomi had a relative, a distant relative, who was able to be a kinsman redeemer to her daughter-in-law. And this person was a noble fella. He was well endowed. He was well to do in the society. And he was willing to take Naomi's daughter-in-law to wife. And that is exactly happened. He fulfilled all the requirements that the tradition at that time needed for him to put in place for him to marry Ruth. Now, when Naomi even came back to Judah, she didn't have a clue things would be able to turn or take this course. But this is what happened. The man who married Ruth was called Boaz. And Boaz with Ruth together had a child. And this child was a male child. And they named him Obed. And so the women living there, this brings us to our second verse which we had read earlier, Ruth 4:17. The women living there said, Naomi has a son. They were so happy for her. They knew the bitterness she had come with. They knew the trouble she had faced when she had gone to Moab and came back empty. And so they were overjoyed that the Lord had given her a son through her daughter-in-law. But here is the best part. We are told the son became the father of Jesse. And Jesse was the father of David. And David became king, or was chosen to be king of Israel. And he was and remains Israel's greatest king. So what does this story teach us? When things don't go your way, trust God. This is what we see, because the Lord still had a purpose and a plan, and a grand one for that matter, that bamboozled Naomi completely. She could not comprehend nor see what was ahead of her, even when she came back and asked people to call her Mara. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in. When things collapse, when things don't go our way, we become disillusioned. But if we only trust in God, God is always and remains in control of all our circumstances. This story teaches us to remain focused upon Him, to trust Him, to depend on Him, and to wait on Him, because He is capable of doing immeasurably more than all we can think or imagine, beyond whatever we can ask Him for. And this is what we see, because for Naomi, not only then did she have a son who had a son who became the father of Israel's greatest king. By extension, Naomi herself became the great-great-grandmother of Israel's greatest king. And more so than in the lineage of Israel's greatest king came the greatest son of David, our Lord Jesus Christ Himself. So from being bitter, from being empty, to being in an eternal lineage, this is only what God can do. This is what we can learn, that when things don't go our way, we can just trust God, who knows all things and who's able to work out all things for the purpose of His glory. And so I want us to be encouraged. No matter what difficult circumstances we are going through, we can commit ourselves to God. We can wait upon God. We can trust in God, because He has the final say to our circumstances and our issues, and not the things that challenge us. I hope your trust will be renewed, your faith will be kindled, and your hope will be awakened to call on the name of the Lord, that He may establish you in the things that may make you bitter, as Naomi was. When things don't go your way, trust in God. For EBZ Devotion, I'm your brother, Claudius Shemaiah. Until next time, blessings.